Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today, and I am so glad you joined me. So today we are going to make a dioramic card. I will be announcing the winner of the last one I made here probably tomorrow, and we'll see kind of how things go. If you missed the video on how I did this technique, this is just basically a baby wipe inking technique. And I'm going to show it to you again. You're going to want a damp baby wipe. Just like with regular cloths, when they're damp, they absorb more liquid. Well, so do baby wipes. So this one's going to just absorb more ink. And I'm keeping it kind of crumbled up, just like you would if you were doing a wall sponging type technique. Every single one of these you do, you're going to really get a different effect. You can have as much or as little ink as you want. And these different layers may not really, feel like they're going to make a difference now, but in the long term they will. So you can see every once in a while I've been using this to make others, so you may want to take it off of whatever surface you're sponging on. This is just actually it's a piece of packaging, so that you can kind of look at it, and you want to give it a little bit of time to dry before you go back and add more ink. Otherwise you're going to risk having the paper pill up on you. This is just regular cardstock that I have in my collection. There's nothing special or important about it. I like the Hammermill 110-pound weight cardstock. It is, in my opinion, the best. If you have the Georgia Pacific cardstock that you buy from, your big box stores like Walmart, Target, whatever, those are also excellent for Copic coloring. But I do want something, in this case, that is going to take the really wet ink. And so there's that piece. And there are more that I've done that you'll see here in a minute. So the first thing I did to get ready for this project is I used the same baby wipe technique, and I used some Memento inks on this as well, to just really, I just washed it on back and forth, and then in two different blues. And then when I got to this bottom down here, since swamps are kind of marshy and brownish and greenish and whatever, I did use the same color over this while it was still damp, and I did that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare this piece, which is still damp, for the layering process. Okay, to prepare this piece for our next step in making this card, we are going to take a Versamark ink pad. As you can see, mine has just been well loved. It's been knocked around on my desk. This is the perfect kind of shape that your Versamark can be in if you're doing something like this, because it might pick up the ink. So if you have an old one like I do, use it. We're just going to smash this ink pad very, very generously, pushing kind of hard onto this panel. And you can kind of look in the light at different angles to see if you've gotten it all. And I use a coffee filter, most people do. And we're going to use the Lawn Fawn Glow in the Dark embossing powder. And we're going to add embossing powder to this. And we're going to heat set it. My heat gun is already warm, so I will probably fast forward you through this part. Alright, now that this is heat set, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that step again, pushing very well so that this ink kind of just smushes right into the surface of the paper. And it's really cool because I keep this embossing powder on my desk the last few days, and it's actually glowing in the dark when I turn off the lights at night. But anyway, so by pouring this over the top onto this baby white, we can use every little particle of this embossing powder without really losing any. And you would think that she's a lot of embossing powder, but as you can see, it does not. So we are going to heat set this once again, and I will fast forward you through this part. So desire, you could actually do that a third time if you want. All right, this is actually going to become the very back of our card. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some glossy accents, and we're just going to literally spill some over the top. You can take your finger if you'd like. You can use a tool. You can use the cap, whatever. And you're just going to kind of spread this somewhat evenly on the base of your card. Just like that. And you're actually going to need to put this somewhere where it's not really going to be in any danger of you putting your fingers through it. If it's not perfect, that's fine. If little bubbles come up, don't pop them. It's just going to make it look more realistic in the end. So we're going to put this aside and let it dry. While you're waiting for your background to dry, I suggest that you take the time and you stamp and color and die cut as many of these little teeny tiny images that you can. I did the frogs in different colors. I did them in browns. Some have some textures. I did the little duck. We have the large lily pad and the small lily pad. We have butterflies. We have logs. We have cattails. You name it. Now this little guy right here is from Your Next Stamp, and I think he just got mixed in here because he's on my desk. Now I did stamp mine and die cut them with my brother's Scan and Cut 2. And once I had them all done, I just stuck them in this little it's actually the same coffee filter as I used for the background. So while we are waiting for the background to dry, we're going to do some assembling. All right, there are a few things we can do to prepare our card while we wait for those other elements to dry. And the first is we're going to put a few of these background pieces together. Now you just want to go around the outside edge like this. You do not need, unless you want it to really be flat and not have that dimension, you don't need to add anything to these parts that are dangling down. Some of these I cut from solid color cardstock, just like this one, and then sponged it, and some were white, and they got sponged just like this one. And this is 2 layers. Just like that. Okay, and you can see that these are not, actually they are lining up really perfectly, but I don't want them to be perfect because when I do start sandwiching plastic in between these layers, I want them to have that dimensional look like I was talking about before. So now we are going to go around the edges. I do prefer some glossy accents to regular white glue, only because it is strong enough and it dries clear to hold the plastic that was going to go in between all these pieces. So what I did in advance was I cut some pieces of acetate. This is just transparency film. And these are 5.5 by 4 1/4, so they are A2, and they will fit pretty much perfectly right here. if it doesn't fit perfectly or you make a mistake cutting, don't sweat it. Because seriously, when it's all said and done, you can always go back and trim out any little excess on the sides or the bottom with some scissors. So there are 2 layers right there together. We're going to do a couple of more. I think I must have glossy accents in my hair because I keep getting these weird little drops, so that's kind of interesting. Alright, so we're going to turn this one over. Same thing. It's according to how much bulk you want in your card as to how many of these you layered together. So let's just put that second one on. Does it matter if you do it upside down, right side up? As long as you get it done, it doesn't really honestly matter. And later on, if there are any parts that are warping from the moisture, they will settle down. And if they don't, once the whole thing is dry, you can always put it under something heavy like a book and take care of it that way. So this one has 2 layers. As you can see, I cut a whole bunch of these. I cut probably way more than I'll need or that I'll use, but we shall see. I always kind of surprise myself when it comes to this. So this layer, I've decided I actually want this a little thicker, but before I put this on the back, I'm going to go ahead and put a piece of acetate there. Once again, you don't have to worry about the little hanging down pieces, just the outside edges. And once again, it does not have any need to be perfect. No, I don't know if you can see that little dirt spot, whatever, that's on this acetate. Don't worry about it. Think of it as part of your design. You're going to find out that these types of cards are time-consuming, but they're very rewarding and they're very forgiving as far as the final product goes. You're not going to see really any mistakes. So there's that one. I did decide just to do the 2 layers, so that's fine. And then get one more layer ready. And here's our acetate right there. So we're gonna start with the back. Do you guys like the videos where I just talk you through it, or do you like voiceovers better? Let me know in the comment section down below. And we are going to get this one on. And get that lined up. Since it's glossy accents, you do have a little bit of wiggle room to really line things up. You may just want to run your nails over it to make sure everything is making good contact with the piece in front of it. And then this is going to be another piece of acetate. Same thing, just real gently. Go around the edges with your fingers. If anything eases out, do not worry about it. This is actually a piece of shelf liner that's down here. It's just, the only reason I use it is because it reflects light. And it does help with the filming of my videos. I apologize in advance for any lighting issues. I can fix most of them after the video is on my Movie Maker program, and then just adjust the color that way. So there we have these 3 layers, and we're gonna wait for stuff to dry and then we'll continue on. All right, I have gone ahead and put a couple things down, and I'd forgotten to start the video camera, so here we go. I put a little frog up here, and then I put this log here and a small, I'm not sure what you call those, water lily, I think is what they're called, down towards the bottom. Now this is dry. It wasn't on that thick, so it really didn't take that long, so that's fine. So I have one of these little stubby, I don't know, stamps, and I used some black ink and then stamped it off and then just put it randomly in the background. That's just going to act kind of like bugs would. I apologize for my dogs who are going to misbehave because I am trying to do a video. Anyway, so what we're going to do is I'm going to take one of these panels. I'm not going to attach it, but I am going to bring it over so I can kind of judge what I want to do on this very back piece. And so the next thing I'm going to do is just kind of lay that there for this second, this minute, whatever. And I'm going to go ahead and find some of the smaller little pieces here. Yeah, see, yep. And big cattails, we have baby cattails, and we have little things like that. And if you have some of these leftovers, you can always cut these off and they can become grass at the very back like that, which I think is something that's actually a good idea. We'll see if I go with that here in a second. And let's see. Lots of little pieces for the very back here. So a bigger water lily, a small little toadstool. What do you call these? I don't remember what they're called. Lord have mercy. Okay, so we have some little pieces of grass and little pieces to continue our background. So what I'm going to do is just move that out of the way, but kind of maybe sit it up where I can see it. And use some glossy accents here once again. Put Mr. Froggy on the log, just like that. And then we have this piece, we can leave it, we can put this one here, or what I did was I took some glossy accents and put it over the top of this one, then I covered it with some more of that glow-in-the-dark embossing powder, and I can put it down here somewhere, and we can kind of see how that looks. It kind of gives some texture there, and I don't like that, so we're gonna just take that away, and we're gonna bring this one back and decide where it needs to be in this part of the scene anyway. And I do like this, it just needs to be up a little bit more. And this also dried fairly quickly. And actually this is the back. It is still a tiny little bit damp, but once again, you do not want this perfect. The more texture it has, the more it's going to draw your eye through the scene and give you that dimension that a dioramic card has. And this is where we're gonna add some cactus, some cattails. Is it cattails or cactails? I'm not sure. Anyway, so, and these don't have to be flat. Really, they don't. It's kind of better if they're not, because once again, it's all about dimension. And you know, folks, it's really kind of interesting is that I was never good at making dioramas when I was a kid. You know, you used to have to do them with a shoebox for school. I knew some kids who could do them. They were just fabulous. I was not that kid. It just never worked out for me. I didn't have the depth perception. My husband would argue the point that I really still don't have it. But that's neither here nor there. I will tell you that sometimes I'll park my car and I think, what the heck was I thinking? Because I'm just not parked very straight. So here we go. This one, a few more little pieces here and there. How about Mr. Butterfly? This one doesn't have a piece of acetate, but it will help me with the depth perception, so that's going to go right in there somewhere. Because he is running like heck. I really kind of need to change the blade on that scan and cut. Or just maybe readjust the depth for it, because it didn't actually cut through that piece very well, did it? Let's hold that for a second. Now this background is a little slick because of that embossing powder. And in my video you can actually see it fluorescing, and you can't see it if you're looking at it from this angle, but you can if you're doing the project, which I think is kind of interesting. So let's get that in. Okay, so let's bring this panel back again and see if we want anything else on this panel. Once again, if you get those little mistakes, don't sweat it. I want something else down in here. I want to call them cactus, and I'm not sure why they're not, by any small stretch of the imagination, cactus. They are cattails. They do thrive in wet conditions, and that's probably about all I know about them. I know that my mother used to really like them, and she's been on my mind quite a bit this week. We're coming up real close here to the first anniversary of her passing, and that's very difficult. If you guys are following me on Facebook or on Instagram, which the information will be down below, it's always on my blog, upper left hand corner. It's all my social media things. But anyway, I just spent a couple days with my youngest son, Chad. Very proud of him. He graduated AIT, and so he is at Fort Riley. He called me last night, let me know how he was, and then he texted me at 4 a.m., which was fine with the mama. Just let me know he was safe and sound and had arrived, and he was actually going to get to sleep in. They did, in fact, let him sleep until like noon. So I know he was thankful for the rest, because he had been up almost 24 hours by that point in time. So that's how that goes. All right. Right, so this is this piece, and we are going to allow that to dry. Okay, we have gotten this layer down on top of the first. I did have to squirt a little bit more adhesive right here. You can kind of see that it's wet up underneath there. It will dry. It may take, you know, a while, but it will dry. Okay, so this is where we're going to go ahead and start decorating this layer, and we're going to decorate it on top of the existing acetate. The first thing I want to do is just add a couple of small little drops, just very randomly, of this glossy accents, and I'm going to just put into place a couple of these little gems or diamond-shaped crystals, or I'm not even sure what they're called, but they are, once again, from Queen & Company. So this is just going to give it some added sparkle. And since I did this background with the Versamark and the glow-in-the-dark embossing powder, as it's underneath these lights and we're working on it, it's charging. So it will glow in the dark. You may not necessarily see the creatures, but you will see the background, which is kind of a very interesting effect in little or no light situations, which is what this is. So we're going to continue to work on this, and I'm going to add another lily pad. This one's a little bit larger than the last, and this is where you want to just make sure you have enough adhesive. I'm not being like super gloppy, but I'm not being real conservative either. And however you want your lily pad little dimple to face is the way you're gonna put it down. So that's down, just hold that there for a second. Okay, now I'm thinking I want another froggy right here. I just need to decide which one. There's an awful lot of green already, so let's use this brown frog and use some adhesive on him. I just put my glossy accents in a very, I think this is actually a 2-ounce bottle that I got from Hobby Lobby. And it comes with these tops. They get all glumped up, as you can see. And I just clean that out with a pen of some type, and it's fine. So him, you do kind of want him to lay flat, so you may have to use just a little bit more adhesive. And since I picked that up, it all came together. So let's hold that down for 30 seconds or so. Okay, now even more cactuses. Excuse me, cattails. I tell you what, I should have a contest. How many times does Loretta say cactus instead of cattails in this video? But I just refuse to be perfect or overthink things because life is just too short. Have some fun. For crimini's sake, let the bad stuff go. And that is hard to do. I know. I was talking to my husband earlier tonight and sharing with him that the kiddo called home this afternoon just to check in and be sure that I knew he was okay, which was very thoughtful. Just the level of maturity I see in this young man is just wonderful, and frankly, it's about time. So those of you who have teenagers at home and you're struggling with them, just remember that this too shall pass, and they will grow up and mature and be their own person. And it is such a wonderful thing. I couldn't be prouder over him and of him, I guess. So as you can see, I'm also putting these below the margin of this piece. I will be cutting those off a little bit later. So there we go. A little glue, a little dab-doo glue, huh? Sorry. I watched too much Flintstones back in the day. By the time this video posts, folks, I will probably either be in the hospital or recovering from surgery. I have to have my Nissen fundoplication revised. The hiatal hernia, which is a sliding hernia, my stomach is actually sliding through a hole in my gut, has been causing me some pain, and I wasn't sure if the fundoplication had slipped again. And I had an upper endoscopy done because I have to have one done every few years because of a condition that causes polyps in my stomach. They're not the same type of polyps that you can get in your colon, but they can cause the same kinds of problems and cause cancer if they're not removed. And so when I had that done, that's when we discovered that there was in fact a new hernia, and that's when I decided to go seek another surgical opinion. And when I did, that's when we discovered the exact scope, if you will, of the problem. And so we're gonna have that fixed. And if you follow my story at all, then you do also know that my husband's out of the country. That does not help things. It complicates them quite a bit, actually. and it's not any fun. But there are worse things that can happen, and I have a wonderful support here of family, friends, and people that I trust that are like family. So, okay. And now we're going to just see if this is dry enough yet. Go ahead and cut these off. And if you cut them a little short, it really isn't going to matter because you're not going to be able to see them. See, like that little piece right there actually tore, and that's fine. You will never ever see it. And that one I picked up with the scissors, that's okay too. We'll just stick him right back where we had him. That looks about right to me. How about you? You think that's good? That's good. So just trim that off just like that. We're going to clean this back up a little bit later, and as you can see, even though I put that glue right here earlier, it didn't exactly still adhere down, so I'm just going to go ahead and take care of that. So this is where we're going to go ahead and we're going to glue glossy accents. I keep saying glue. This piece on. And just like we glued on the first piece, we are not going to put any adhesive on these little swamp grass, I guess that's what we'll call it. But just like with the other layer, just let that sit for, 30 seconds to a minute or so, and let that sit up. You can take a package on your desk, give it a little wave. You do not want to add heat at this point. Even though this is a thermal transparency, it can take the heat. We don't want to warp anything any more than it already is. With all this adhesive and all this moisture we've added during this process, it's going to warp. So let's just do that real quick and go ahead and line this piece up on top. And once again, we're just going to press it down with our fingers. This time I'm going to kind of start towards the bottom, kind of hold it there just for a few seconds, work our way up. And this is where it needs to mostly line up. If it's not perfect, it really isn't going to matter. Once again, you're not going to see it. Okay, so let's just hold this in place, and we will continue to our next step. All right, my friends, I went ahead and I cut these little pieces off at the bottom. I am going to go in and cut that little piece that was kind of bothering me anyway off. And now we're going to place on our last level of acetate. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. But before I do, I'm just going to take my baby wipe, kind of clean this nozzle off a little bit. It's getting a little too goopy for my taste. Uh-oh, it's all right. And since this is the last layer, you don't need to be overly generous with the adhesive. You do want to get enough on so that it will, in fact, hold everything in place. And once again, you just kind of want to let it sit there. But while we wait for this, I'm going to show you this. As you can see, the edges of this are quite warped, and this one actually isn't sealed all the way on the bottom. And we're actually going to hide all that. We will make a little strip, probably of just some paper, that we will wrap around the edges of this to finish it off. Before we do that, we're probably going to cut a new back for it, just because the back is quite messy right now. So, okay, let's just kind of speed this along a little bit. Let's kind of add some little aeration, so to speak, to that, she says, as she drops the piece she was fanning with. Also, during this process, if you're one of these people who needs to add little white highlights to everything you touch, you should be doing that as you go along. It's not going to do you any good to try to do it on top of the acetate. You will never see it. But if you do it on the top of the pieces as you're layering it, it will make somewhat of a difference. You can see that I do have some white highlights in some of the pieces, just not all of them. And that's okay. So we're going to start at the bottom again. It's a lot of oozing right now. I figured I'd gotten a little glue happy after cleaning that nozzle out. It really wanted to flow out well. That's okay. And we can give it a hair trim where we need it to. With all these layers, if you make a mistake at this point, you will never, ever know. Unless you told somebody you made the mistake, they're not going to see it. That's why we left all these pieces loose that we did. If you have anything that you don't really like, you can always cut it back or put something over it to hide it. No mistakes in stamping, only embellishment opportunities. It's my motto. And so if you got stuff that's kind of stuck on and around other pieces, now's the time to kind of straighten that out. Okay, so we're going to bring back Mr. Stubby and just kind of do some more stamping with him. I really should be using stays on at this point because this may or may not dry. Because it is just on acetate, it's not protected by something else anymore. But I guess we shall find out. Now all we're going to do is just add a few finishing touches to the very top. Just like this. It's going to add to that illusion of dimension, as if you're looking out of a window into your yard, or maybe you have a swamp in your backyard, which we're starting to get because it will start raining. And I love, love, love rain. I'm very thankful for it. I know our farmers are thankful for it, but there is such thing as too much, and we have certainly gotten too much this year. It is April, and our poor crops are probably going to start dying just from too much of a good thing. However, you know, I learned a long time ago, be thankful for everything you have. And there's a reason for everything. Sometimes you don't always see it, but there is always a reason for things that happen in your life and to you. Don't ever lose track of the real purpose for your life, because it is a great one. So there you have it. There's a card. It is finished except for the last little touches. And since I'm running out of battery, I will be posting the still pictures after the video is done of it completely finished. For a chance to enter this card, leave me a comment down below. Regardless of whether you see this, tag it on your social media and share it with others. Stamp happy and be a blessing. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now. Alright folks, the card is finished. I put a piece of plain cardstock on the back. It is still drying, as you can see. I finished it off by putting a bead of the glossy accents right here. I put a few more of those little gem things on here, and I added just a little bit of glitter, and that's it. So still pictures once again will follow. Hope you like it.